Hey everybody, this is Perch. Data is important. I do the sales analysis videos. I think that driving with data is an important part of doing your business right, and I think comics usually performs and does better when they do work off of data and work off that analysis. But it does have its limitations, and this viewer kind of hits on that. It says, "Hey Perch, I've heard you discuss data and its importance, but can it have excessive value? That is to say, can someone adhere to data to the point where important decisions are reactive rather than proactive? Is there a real chance that instead of just having a vision, a corporate decision maker just responds to whatever the reports say, and as a result, is basically constantly playing catch up instead of charting a path forward? Has that happened, and how common would such an occurrence be?" And then hope you read and respond sometime before the decade is out. Yeah, hey, how about that? We got there. So absolutely, it's a possibility. It's pretty common in a lot of business that you can overdo the data and you can overdo the strategy and kind of the plan around the strat and kind of lose sight of the vision of what you're doing, because some things, particularly new things, they don't have data, and companies get paralyzed trying to find data when it doesn't exist, or when they're trying something new and the data models do not apply. And this hasn't happened much in comics, if ever. I mean, comics really does have the opposite problem of almost no tracking to data and a lot of kind of gut feels. Like, hey, it feels like limited series are bad for sales. And that's like, did anybody do an analysis around this? No. Okay. Well, I guess we'll just roll with that then. That's kind of the limits of how a lot of this stuff gets done. But it definitely it does occur. And the most common thing that happens is that you're trying something new. And in creative endeavors, you're often trying something new. Even if it's the same old comic, you're trying a different creative team, a different storyteller, a different way of storytelling. There's a lot of different variants of how you can tell a story and how you can bring your creation to life. And many times what people will do, and I guess they have done this a bit in comics, is they try and apply, a model they know to the new, so they can kind of wrap their head around what they should be looking for. And on the surface, that's not a bad idea to say, hey, we're doing like for example, if DC took Batman and all the Batman comics and what sells there as a benchmark, and then said, all right, we're going to pivot now and do Wonder Woman, and we want Wonder Woman to have the same growth metrics that Batman does. I mean, that's not an unreasonable thing to say we're going to chart whether we're doing well with Wonder Woman based on how Batman grew and grabbed an audience and held on to that audience. That's not the weirdest idea in the world. Unfortunately, the flaw in that argument is that Wonder Woman is fundamentally a different character that's going to appeal to different people. And so it's a bit like comparing an apple to a watermelon. They're both fruit, but they're very, very different in how you eat them, how you store them, how all kinds of things. Apples can be taken with you on the go. You could put apples in fast food if you want, cut them into little bits. If you're trying to shove a watermelon into a Happy Meal, it's not going to work terribly well. So, at any rate, the point is you could certainly get caught up in looking at data and definitely get yourself into a reactive state where it's like, when you're doing something new and when you're pursuing a vision, you have to have faith and confidence that your vision is correct and also be willing to take the consequences. This is the other thing that a lot of corporations ultimately get themselves into trouble. They stop being able to take risks. They basically create a construct where they don't take risks. And I don't know if any of you have been in a company where they talk about, we need to fail fast. Have you heard that one? Is your company using that? We need to fail fast. Well, it sounds good, and honestly, it is good. You do want to try bold new things, measure them very closely, and then, understand what's a failure early. It's better to fail fast than fail slow. Except to a lot of people, including to companies and to the workers within those companies, it's much better to fail slow. If you fail slow, you have a good shot of blaming somebody else for the failure. Maybe people will forget about it. Maybe their attention will be diverted elsewhere and they'll forget about your failure. There's lots of reasons why people pick fail slow as a strategy, why they intentionally decide to try failing slow. And even though companies all kind of nod their heads and agree, like, yeah, we need to be bold, we need to fail fast, very few people actually do it. When companies go and they're trying to acquire something or they're going to partner with someone, and it's clear early on that the acquisition of the partner or the endeavor is bad. Oftentimes, they will keep digging at that hole for a very long time because they just, if I admit that we failed, it's going to come back on me. And companies will say, "Hey, we reward people who put a bullet in things that are bad for us." But even though they say that, they often do not. If you go and you say, you take the bold move of, "Hey, I think this thing we're doing isn't working. We need to do something else." More likely, you're going to get punished than rewarded. People are going to, call you negative. They're going to say you never really gave it a chance. You're going to get into this morass of having to defend, you wanting to stop, to acknowledge something as a failure. And in comics, I think you have a decent amount of this. And this is, I honestly believe, one reason why the data isn't used in comics. Because the data would point to a lot of ugly truths. Like, maybe the strategy of editors hiring kind of from the same pool, the same relatively small pool, year after year after year, is a bad strategy. Maybe the fact that you have no, real onboarding of new talent beyond who can network on social media or, in the editor's small group of friends, it's been proven over and over and over when you look at the data that it shouldn't be done that way. People shouldn't be hired. Books shouldn't be, greenlit that way. The process of greenlighting an idea and then, getting it into a book and getting the pitch sold in and going, picking the team and making the books, that process is agonizingly slow. Like slow to the point of it's not a process, it's a death march. And in many cases, comics have missed out on huge opportunities because of this. But I believe that this is one reason, this is the precise reason why a lot of editors and comic companies don't look at the data, because the data would pretty much highlight the fact that, they're doing it wrong. Or some of these choices that get made, which are kind of advantageous to the editor themselves, are bad choices and really should be in the hands of someone else. I mean, you could make a really strong argument in 2022 that the editors for the big companies should not be in charge of hiring decisions at all. And there should be some, the editor in chief or some level of person who's looking at all the comics in general should be putting together the talent and basically handing off to the editors to then run with what's been selected for them. And I say that because if you truly want to pursue a strategy of getting new audiences and doing different things and getting into new genres and all the rest, then it should be data driven, not obsessively. I think the point in the mail was correct. You can absolutely only watch for the data and get yourself into danger. But at the very least, I think that, I just think the data shows pretty plainly that there are significant problems in the way comics are currently working. And, what's the solution to that? Don't look at the data. Yeah, I mean, bluntly, just say, it doesn't matter. Comics are doing great. Did you see the numbers are higher than ever? And I think comics has constructed for itself this very odd set of data that kind of shifts from year to year, what's being collected, how it's being summarized. I mean, there was a period like 5 years ago where manga and books from other, overseas were absolutely not counted in the numbers. And, people within comics aggressively said, no, that shouldn't be counted. That's not our number. And kind of the people like the Beat and those sites absolutely would kind of go on and on about stuff like that. Like manga's not part of the mix. Now suddenly 2022 manga is part of the mix. It always was, they say. The problem is the data that's being shown and being kind of handed around is super curated and super just flexible. And the thing, if you look at some of the analysis that's done on ICV2 or the Beat or places like that, what you find is that, by and large, if you go from like 2012 to 2022 and you compare the data being collected and what's being reported and what's rolling in, more often than not, they're completely different sets. You're getting pictures that kind of portray the comic industry growing and evolving year after year, but you're measuring different things. You're not measuring the same thing. So as a result, I mean, a statistician would tell you it's worthless. You have to have a consistent baseline of numbers. So anyway, I've gone pretty far. I guess the point is that absolutely, I mean, comics are a creative endeavor, and you do have to take chances, and you have to be willing to fail fast, and you have to be willing to ignore the data and pursue your vision, but not forever. At some level, you do have to come back, and you do have to start measuring what you've done. And I think the smart way to do this is when you're heading out on your creative endeavor, it's going to be brand new and different. Consider, what are your KPIs? What are your key performance indicators? What are your milestones are going to look like? Make some guesses. Some of the best data collection is not actually collection after the fact, but beforehand. Assessing what does success look like. Basically, telling yourself, "Hey, in 30 days, we expect this. In 6 months, we expect that the title will have grown 5%. Whatever, something like that. You need to be able to do that put those kind of numbers out there so that you know what to track. And therefore, when you do start collecting your data, you're collecting it very specifically against the adventure or the thing that you set out to do. And I think that's the only sane way that it works. But by and large, yes, I think you can go overboard with data. Absolutely. I think the challenge in comics is we're very much in the opposite camp, and I would almost love to have that problem. But great question. Thanks for asking. Hope this was interesting, and thanks for listening.